Hey, John Gilroy here. Peter Drucker once said, if you can measure it, you can manage it. Today, we will learn if you can apply that axiom to federal IT systems.
Hit the music, Manny.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, a podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Jeff Gallimore, Chief Technology and Innovation Officer, co-founder of a company called Excella, Excella. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, John. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Really good fun with Manny there. He's going to love you just bringing him on the show. It's great.
Hey, I'm a long-time listener, and we've done this more than once, and it's been on my bucket list to say that.
I think we were at Monk's Barbecue with Claude and Manny, and they looked at you and started that or something, but everyone wants to, who's Manny? We keep it as a mystery, though. Well, I'm going to talk about something today that's a very, very old and boring topic, and something that's very, very new and interesting. And the topic is measuring developer productivity. There's been books for years about this. I don't know, since they all first started. And how do you measure productivity? Now, some people say, well, lines of code. Well, that's not it's like, is he a good writer? Is Jeff a good writer? Well, he wrote, 100 pages last night. Might be a good writer.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of ways to measure productivity. And you've been keenly involved in this for many, many years, very active in the DevOps community. And I thought we'd talk about new ways to measure productivity, especially as it applies to the federal government. So my working title here is, are your federal IT systems truly effective? How to measure what matters. So can Peter Drucker be applied to us today?
I think so. I think he was a pretty smart guy. He knew a thing or two about management. And I absolutely think that measurement has its place in how we learn and improve, how we get better. As long as we apply those measurements and the practices around that in healthy ways, because there are a lot of anti-patterns and a lot of unhealthy and unconstructive ways to apply measurement as well.
Yeah, everyone watches pro football and quarterback rating and the number and yards and everyone's got a number. And so people kind of fall back to that. And that's why people say, well, let me evaluate Jeff here. Well, he did 1,000 lines of code today. He must have worked 8 hours. I mean, it can't be that simple. So what kind of precepts or principles do you use in evaluating software productivity?
Yeah. So, right out of the gate, there's a framework that we've been using for probably the last 10 years, and it's called DORA. So DORA used to stand for DevOps Research and Assessment. I think they've rebranded that. It's now part of Google, and it was started, like I said, probably 10 years ago, coming out of the State of DevOps Report research. Really smart people, led by Dr. Nicole Forsgren, landed on 4 key metrics around IT performance that were research-based and really predictive of technology outcomes and also predictive of organizational outcomes. So you want to improve your organizational performance, you improve your IT performance, and these 4 metrics are really the way to do that. And those 4 metrics, not to bury the lead any more than I already have, those 4 metrics are around 2 areas. One is around stability and one is around throughput. The throughput metrics are deploy frequency and lead time for changes. So deployment frequency being how fast are you making or how often are you making changes to your production environment? And then the lead time for changes is how long does it take to have a change go from code committed in a repository or source control somewhere to the time that change is running in production. So those are the 2 throughput metrics. The 2 stability metrics are change failure rate. So how often do you make a change that causes a service degradation or an outage? And then also failed deployment recovery time. So if you do have a deployment that fails, that causes that service degradation, how long does it take you to recover from that? And those metrics, all kinds of science, research, and insights that have come out of that research over the last 10 years through that DORA, Google's DORA program. Fascinating stuff. But those are the ways that we have found most effective in terms of gauging what really it takes, what high-performing technology looks like.
And what Dr. Nicole Forsgren says, and I love this phrase, she calls it a constellation of metrics.
Yeah.
It's not just
Yeah.
one thing, John. I guess that's the way, you would evaluate employees. Let's say we're working at Jeff's donut shop or something. You evaluate what time I show up, if I was pleasant to customers, if I had a good attitude, and all the safety precautions. So there's a constellation of things. And so it's not just one element. And this is where the art comes in, I mean, a lot of software developers, they're engineers and there's software engineers and are math oriented, but maybe Jeff's got to take off his engineering hat and put on his UVA liberal arts hat and say, well, now we have to be more a full orb approach, huh?
We've all been, I think, if we're any length into our career, we've probably seen problems when our work or our experience or results are reduced down to just one single metric. There's risk of gaming those metrics. There's a risk of, again, unhealthy behaviors. There's a risk of punitive consequences being associated with a single metric. And that's, again, one of the beauties of DORA is that it puts these metrics out there, but it also encourages the program, and again, the implementation or the application of the set of capabilities really encourages learning and improvement and getting better in a way that is informed by the metrics, but those metrics don't become targets. And that's, I think, where the sort of the bad behaviors come in, and really the negative consequences was when you make a measure a target. That's again where things can go sideways.
Yeah, people can start playing games. I'm thinking about my listener. A lot of times they're, walking their dog or out and may want to learn information for you. So you can go to your website, excella.com. I'll put that in the show notes. I'll also put in the show notes that link to DORA. Was it dora.dev? Is that where it's at?
Dora.dev is the best first place to go to learn more about DORA. Yes.
Good. I'll put that in the show notes. And you can go to federaltechpodcast.com and interview number 227 and connect right up there. People talk about being efficient, and everyone knows the Peter Drucker quote. And it's a great quote. And I'm going to quote someone that maybe you've never heard of before. It's a professional speaker from San Francisco named Patricia Fripp. And she once said that, don't do something well that you shouldn't be doing in the first place.
Yeah.
My. That applies to housework, working in the yard carpentry. I mean, so many things. I mean, and I think that's back to the arts and science. The arts part of it is looking at a project and thinking, okay, now, we can optimize this, but should we, huh?
Right. Yeah, I think this is such an interesting insight that maybe we're rediscovering. I wanted to share this, that DORA has been a favorite topic of mine for 10 years now. Efficiency is now a topic that's dominating many conversations today. And I think they work together. To your point, if you don't really question your requirements, like what it is that you're supposed to be doing, then you could be doing things that you aren't supposed to be doing, aren't what's best, aren't most efficient. And if you do the wrong thing more efficient, more faster, cheaper, whatever, it just makes you wronger. That was a quote from somebody else, not Patricia Fripp. But so really questioning what the right thing or the good thing or the correct scoping is for whatever it is that your mission is, or what outcomes that you're going for. And then once you've identified what those right things are, then you can work on how to make those activities and the actions associated with those more efficient.
Yeah, it's the first. Let's go back to the DORA principles about deployment frequency. I mean, this is a woman who I mean, she's been in yelling and screaming matches in the coffee room with developers. I've seen that, or this or that, and so how would you measure? That's not a bad little metric. It could be like miles per gallon in the car. It's how many have you gotten out? Oh, well, our next one is 18 months. Pardon me? And you've heard 18 months years ago.
Yeah. So a couple key points here. One is, one of the anti-patterns that I've seen is looking at individual productivity or efficiency metrics and not looking at the team. So the prevailing philosophy, I think now, and the healthier view of productivity and efficiency now is to look at the team. We work in teams. That's how modern knowledge work gets done, and that's the level of metrics that we should be looking at. We shouldn't try to single out individuals out of teams and looking at lines of code or how many pull requests you submitted or whatever it is. We should be looking at the team, and that's where these DORA metrics really shine. Is that they do look at the team.
One of the things I like about this DORA system is deployment frequency. I think if you look at evaluating many different things, I think that's a good way. Well, how many got out the door? How many cars were released today, or something like that. So it's a nice metric, but it incorporates a lot of activities, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, deployment frequency. When you look at what it takes to increase or improve your deployment frequency, that's where I would go to the DORA capability catalog. We already mentioned the DORA.dev website, so in there it talks about the 4 key metrics that we've already discussed. But it also has a capability catalog of 30 some odd different capabilities supporting climate for learning, supporting fast flow, supporting fast feedback. And you start to dig into there. And if you are a program owner or a mission owner or a team lead, and you think that deployment frequency is something that you want to work on, engaging the team in some conversation around, well, what's getting in the way of us deploying more frequently? And in my experience, that team is going to provide a lot of insight in terms of what might be getting in the way of deploying more frequently. But they're also going to be talking about what likely are going to be those capabilities that are in the DORA capability catalog. For example, what's preventing us from deploying more frequently? Well, we've got heavyweight change approval processes. And this is something that is rampant in many large, complex organizations, including the federal government, where there's lots of compliance processes and requirements that need to be met. But we see heavyweight change approval processes. So when you've got people writing documents that need to be reviewed by humans, and sometimes multiple humans, that takes a long time before you can deploy that change to production. Yeah, that can kind of get in the way of deploying more frequently. So that's starting with the goals that you have, and what would be more valuable to you as a mission or a business or an organization, and looking at what those metrics are telling you, and then starting to dig into, well, what are the capabilities that we need to work on or improve that are going to address those constraints that are preventing us from getting where we want to go.
I got a management question for you here. You have a bunch of smart folks there at Excella. We all know that. I've met a bunch of them. And so a group of smart people like this, you're not going to get them to, change real quickly. I mean, they're going to think through everything. And so this thing called organizational culture comes up with a lot of companies. Mm. And so how can you use leadership in an organizational culture to implement these frameworks like DORA? Because there may be some resistance or there may be total acceptance. But I tell you one thing, a group of 20 people, there's going to be some people love it, some people hate it, some people don't care.
Yeah. So you are hitting on another one of my most favoritist topics, John, which is culture and leadership. And this has been a journey for me for at least the last 10 years around the importance of leadership, and then also really the impact and the benefit of culture on the performance of teams and organizations, and also the impact on individual well-being and job satisfaction and all of that. So culture and leadership, and they go together very, very much so. I think are undervalued capabilities in today's organizational environments. And here's what I mean by that. Leadership, good, bad, or indifferent, really sets the tone and the pace for the performance of the organization. And so there's a capability, I keep going back to DORA, there's a capability for that. In the list of capabilities, it's called transformational leadership. And again, there's a lot of science and research behind this particular, we'll call it flavor or variety of leadership. it is defined by 5 specific capabilities. One is vision, so the ability to set a vision, and then the second one is inspirational communications, inspire people to towards that vision. There's also intellectual stimulation, which is challenging people in the way that things have been done, to really rethink what they do, how they do it. There's supportive leadership. So recognizing that there are personal needs, individual needs that people have, and how do we create a supportive environment that has those needs met? And then the last one is personal recognition. So what's the celebration, the recognition that people get for a job well done? And so those 5 characteristics, in addition to sounding good, the science and the research shows that the presence of those characteristics in leaders predicts improved performance in organizations. So the more you have the leaders with those qualities, the better the performance of the team or the organization will be. And then that also sets the tone for the culture. Now, this is a journey that I've been on really since the early phases or the instantiation of the DORA program, when they showed that certain cultural attributes also affected or predicted IT and organizational performance. And this really goes to the work of Dr. Ron Westrom, who's an American sociologist, came up with a Westrom culture topology. And there are 3 kinds of cultures: pathological, bureaucratic, and generative. And just to cut right to the chase, generative is the one that you really want. Presence of high psychological safety, lots of information sharing, safe to fail environments, supports experimentation, learning from failure, all of that. Those are the presence of those capabilities or those qualities are really predictive of high performing organizations.
I'm taking notes, and I wrote down failure. Point number 4, mean time to recovery. Whoa, wait a minute. You're going to fail, man. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to make the wrong assumptions. So what? Everyone does, I mean, but that one of the key concepts is, okay, you're going to try, something's going wrong, try something, get up and go. It just happens. And that's, I think these principles of DORA, when I first learned about DORA several years ago, I thought that was a Google initiative. That's when I thought that was just imprinted with me. But then I did some more research on it and I said, wow, I mean, this is something who's, these questions that you're asking, what can we do to be a higher performing team? The Washington Commanders asked that. Navy SEAL teams asked that. I mean, I have a company I work with, and once a week we do stand up, and that's what we ask. Okay, how can we do this better every week? And I think I'm going to have to phrase this very carefully. In early 2025, the federal culture is looking carefully at effectiveness and efficiency.
Correct.
And I think if you can demonstrate a approach that will provide that, then I think you will be successful. And there's a very carefully worded statement, huh?
Yeah. And so another carefully thought out statement to your carefully worded statement is something, of course, I've been thinking about for a long time, and then even more so over the last month or so, related to the federal environment. And here's my firm belief that teams that deliver faster, more frequently, with higher stability, reliability, security, and quality are more efficient and productive. Period. Full stop.
That's good. And in fact, full stop is good because I was reflecting on the title of this presentation, this podcast, Are Your Federal IT Systems Truly Effective? And I think you just answered it there with your last statement, didn't you, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, almost. You'd like to think that, John. So that one of the things that we haven't talked about as much, we touched on it a little bit, which is, if you're not doing the right thing, doing it faster doesn't really help you.
Yeah.
And so, So the other thing that is really important to recognize is that IT performance is great, and creating a higher performing technology environment is great, but that should always be in service of something. Should be in service of your mission goals, your business goals. And that's another thing that DORA talks to. And there's research and science behind this that IT performance predicts organizational performance. So getting clear about what your organizational, your mission goals are, and then putting the technology in service of that. Everybody wins when that happens. The mission wins, the technology group wins, the stakeholders win. And putting that again into the context of efficiency and productivity, when you're doing the right thing and you're doing it in the right way, you're better.
Yeah, I think that's true. A lot of quotes out of this interview. I have to this transcript and send it to you. You can highlight all the good quotes and send it to your team or something, huh?
Outstanding.
They probably heard them from you before.
They probably have, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll put a bunch of stuff in the show notes, the link to Excella, the link to DORA.dev. And I would just like to say that you have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Jeff Gallimore, Chief Technology and Innovation Officer and co-founder of Excella, EXCELLA.